Hi, my name is Turner Simmons. This is my Unit 4 Case Connections video assignment. So for this Case Connections assignment, I chose the case studies 2 and 3. So to start off, Case 2 is a 4-day-old infant. Patient A is being followed in your clinic. Her birth weight was 5.9 pounds, and the pregnancy and birth were normal. Results from newborn screening demonstrated a phenylalanine level of 6.6 milligrams, where the normal range is about 1 to 2 milligrams. Presumptive diagnosis of phenylketonuria was made, and additional samples were obtained for further analysis. And the parents denied a family history of phenylketonuria, or PKU. And the first question is, as a consequence of this presentation, which amino acid would become essential? Now, I said that due to the high amounts of phenylalanine in the patient, the presumptive diagnosis of PKU was made, and this comes with a few different complications. So first of all, PKU is a metabolic defect that is due to the absence or defect of the enzyme uh, phenylalanine hydroxylase, which is responsible for processing the amino acid phenylalanine. It is because of the lack of this enzyme that the patient had extremely high levels of the amino acid in their system. The amino acid that would then become essential is the amino acid tyrosine. This is because when the phenylalanine hydroxylase enzyme is normally functioning, it is responsible for converting phenylalanine into the amino acid tyrosine. So without this enzyme functioning properly, the body would have no way of producing tyrosine on its own, and it would need to be dietarily supplemented. Now, the second part of this case study is phenylalanine dietary restriction therapy was initiated at 14 days of age with good response of plasma phenylalanine levels that dropped to within the normal range. What are the potential causes of the presentation of PKU? Now, what's interesting about PKU is that it is an inherited autosomal recessive genetic disorder. This means that both parents must carry the abnormal gene of PKU in order to pass it on to their offspring. If only one parent had it, then because it's a recessive disorder, their offspring would not have PKU exhibited in them. And this is also explains why their family reported no past history of PKU, because it is a recessive genetic defect, and it takes two parents to have it. So if they don't both have it, the child wouldn't get it. So that's why it's pretty rare. To continue, another infant, patient B, is also being evaluated for suspected PKU. BH4 loading tests are performed on both patients, and the results are presented below. So what it shows is a graph that has the phenylalanine levels on the y-axis, and on the x-axis is time. And so patient A, the one that has PKU, was given BH4 loading, and their phenylalanine levels just continued to rise and go up. Whereas in patient B, after the BH4 loading, pretty soon the levels of phenylalanine dropped way down to about normal levels. And so the question is, how would you summarize the results of this test for patient A and B? So first of all, the BH4 loading test is done because BH4 is the essential cofactor for the conversion of phenylalanine to tyrosine. This means that after the loading of BH4, if the levels of phenylalanine remain the same, which they do in patient A, then the patient does have a defective or non-existent phenylalanine hydroxylase enzyme. However, if the phenylalanine levels do go down, which they do in patient B, then this is not the case. Due to patient A's phenylalanine levels not changing, they would be correct to be diagnosed with PKU, but patient B's levels of phenylalanine dropped immensely after the BH4 load, which tells me they are not deficient which tells me they are deficient in BH4 and they would not have PKU. So they have a whole nother set of issues to deal with there. Now, moving on to case 3, we have, let's see, there we go. Case 3 is a 47-year-old man presents with severe pain in his right big toe. He is unable to bear weight on his right foot and there was no apparent trauma. He reports the pain started last night and continued to increase in severity. Based on his physical exam and laboratory findings, he is diagnosed with gout. Gout can be caused by several different mechanisms, and blood samples are drawn and a urinalysis is performed. The results from this individual are listed below. So in the table, it has the normal plasma urate rate or urate levels is anywhere under 7, and this patient has a plasma urate level of 10.5, so it's a lot higher. And urinary uric acid in a normal patient is about 413 milligrams in 24 hours that gets excreted, where this patient only has 215 milligrams, so it's about half of what it should be. This leads us to the question, what is the best explanation for the presentation of gout in this individual? And please explain why the other choices are not consistent with the data or what additional information you may need to decide the root cause. So the first option is for the presentation of gout is that he is overproducing purines. Now, if this were the case, it would certainly lead to the buildup of uric acid as the breakdown of purines form uric acid, but then it would become excreted in the urine. However, based off this chart, we have no ability to tell if he's overproducing purines. All we know is that there's more uric acid in his plasma. I would speculate that there's no overproduction of purines endogenously because he hasn't had a problem like this before or some pre-existing condition, but it could be that he's eating a lot of foods that have purines in them, and that could be a possible cause, but as we'll see later on, there's another answer that I like better. The second explanation is that there's a decrease in the salvage of purines. This would not be what the chart and information is exhibiting either, because a decrease in the salvage of purines would not cause an increase in the plasma urate rate or urate levels. It would have the opposite effect, so this would not be the case as well. And so this is why I would argue that explanation 3, a decrease in the urinary excretion of uric acid, would be the primary cause of gout. This is because uric acid is excreted in the urine, and according to this chart, this patient is not excreting the necessary amounts of uric acid in his urine. He's about half, as I said earlier, the amount of a regular healthy individual, which raises concern for where the other half of the uric acid is going. And as we can see from the other column of the chart, the uric acid is just sitting around in his plasma, and as his plasma urate levels are really high, and it's not getting excreted. So this is why explanation 3 offers the best reason as to why the patient is experiencing gout, and that is that he has a decreased urinary excretion of uric acid. And the last part of this case study deals with after further discussion with the patient, he tells you that he recently switched from diet soda to regular soda because he read that the fake sugar of diet soda was bad for him. He tells you he drinks between 4 to 5 liters of soda a day. What is the potential impact of this dietary modification on the presentation of gout? Now, the switch from diet soda to regular soda at a consumption rate of 4 to 5 liters a day, it's helpful only if the soda that he's drinking now does not contain fructose. This is because fructose metabolism in the body is a big producer of uric acid. But not only this, the fructose also inhibits the excretion of uric acid. This inhibition is achieved by competing with the uric acid for the transport protein SLC2A9, and this would explain why his urinary uric acid levels were so low. because the fructose from the diet soda was inhibiting it from being excreted. Now, although I wouldn't recommend 4 to 5 liters of any kind of soda a day, his urinary uric acid levels should see an improvement if the soda he's drinking now is fructose free. As for the gout, I would recommend staying away from all sugary drinks in general, as all types of sugary soda will lead to an increased uric acid production and possibly trigger another gout attack in this individual. Uh, and that's it for Unit 4's case study, case connections. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and have a good one.